Get locked in, and you can be excited because it's a powerful champion, but be skeptical because it was a rough performance from Jankos last time around.
I mean, that's definitely true. And Xayah Rakan is still up and available, which Griffin should be more than happy to just grab for themselves. G2 typically counter this with a Morgana support. There is also the option for a Lux, which we often saw over in the LCK, and we did even get to see from G2 in their first best of 5 against Fnatic. They do have options. The question is, would they rather just prioritize their solo lanes right now in the form of Ryze still being up and available? Perhaps they want to deny the Jayce away from someone like Soul.
And Syndra is also still up. So they can do a lot of stuff. So far, it is just straight up denial of what Griffin played against them last time.
And the Shen now will be locked in. They like the way Lehends was playing it last time around. They want to try it for themselves, see whose hands it goes into. But Lehends and Viper, deathless so far on the day. And if G2 want to come out on top, they're going to need to change that.
I wonder if he'll actually go for something more aggressive like the Lucian or
They're
maybe
just
even
taking the whole
Draven.
comp.
But
They're just going to take everything.
Yeah, you know what? We can do what Griffin did, but better. We can definitely do that.
And to be fair, there's a lot of people trying to ego save right now for G2 after that loss. Like, oh, it was triple scaling. They weren't taking it seriously. And I mean, some ego saving right now would be taking the draft that beat you, turning it around and smashing the opposition with it. But the Xayah Rakan bottom lane and a Lee Sin for Tarzan as well, this could be very explosive from the side of Griffin.
Well, for Griffin, I'd love to see them ban away supports now. The best way to enable your Xayah Rakan is to take supports away that shut the Rakan down. Morgana is a really big one, something that Mickey does play a lot. We already talked about it earlier on. There's also the option of something like a Nautilus, but I guess the assumption is that the Shen is going into the support position, given that the Jayce is up in the top lane. So instead, they're just focusing on getting rid of more of these globals.
Yeah, it's still flexible because they could technically go with the Syndra bot lane, but that seems a little dicey at that spot, especially because it would then be the only magic damage on the team. So I'd probably say it's a Shen support as well.
Now the Gangplank has been banned out, so limiting some of the safe blind pickable options from the side of Griffin, maybe trying to secure an optimal matchup for whichever G2 member wants to take either the Jayce in the top side or in the mid lane. The Twisted Fate from Griffin potentially. The Syndra as well, so not wanting to take that risk.
Yeah, they're covering all their bases here. They're saying Syndra's a super strong champion. The Ryze hasn't been covered yet, but that's also something they seemed willing to play into last game. It's also not out of the question that Griffin could just pick it at the start of their first rotation, knowing that they have both solo laners to still lock in.
Camille or Fiora should be considered as bans. I feel like that over in the LCK especially, they do love the, oh, okay. So I think that there are two carry top laners that Sword could go into. I know there's been a lot of criticism directed towards Sword playing carries, so maybe he just sticks to conventional and something he's comfortable in the form of the Aatrox. But we'll have to wait and see. It looks like they're saving it for last pick.
Now, after Chovy's very dominant Akali performance, a bit surprising. Of course, it is banned away in this game, but has opted instead to swap to the Galio, and because of the Rakan lock, and we know that's not going into the bottom lane.
So this makes me think, and this is purely speculation, by the way, that these two did have a good, probably a couple sets of scrims before the World Championship where Chovy's Galio was very effective. The fact that it showed up in the first ban phase from G2, despite Chovy not really playing it at all, and then shows up here after it's available, means this is something that I feel like Griffin has high confidence in.
I think a solid deduction, and now we have to see how G2 eSports ran out this composition. And I think for the side of Griffin, they're looking for one more major damage source. Okay, playing with our hearts a little bit on G2 till the last moment. Mickey debating his options. Cassio. Looks like that one will probably go into the bot lane, into the hands of PerkZ, most likely. And this was high pick back when it was, you know, top tier meta bot lane.
I mean, when the pressure's on, PerkZ defaults to mages. That is what he was known worldwide for. He's brought out the Syndra in Game 5 multiple times. With that being banned away from Griffin, he's going for the Cassio as Sword answers with the Ornn.
And we have come full circle on the G2 versus Griffin series, where in Game 1 it was G2 who locked in the Ornn, and this is a tanky team by Griffin that they put together.
Is it Zoe bot?
It could be Zoe
It
bot.
could be. They're not going to let you know until 20
They'll never
seconds.
know. Yeah, you're right.
So yeah.
Focusing on Griffin's composition. Pretty straightforward. Engage, team fight, dive, it has everything. It scales pretty well. It loves to force around objectives. They can easily play around the bot side of the map because you have the Galio ultimate and the Lee Sin to set up plays as well with the Rakan engage. There are so many tools for Griffin to play early, mid, and even in the late game.
And there is just so many tools to find kills for G2 with the Qiayana, Zoe, Shen running around the map, and a way higher emphasis on the early game this time around for the tiebreaker.
And this is it. Everything on the line, the G2 fans, the G2 army alive in the crowd. But Griffin got the best of G2 in the previous game. Can they do it again? It is all eyes on Viper, on this Xayah, the sole hyper carry for this Griffin lineup. If he is able to have a monster performance, it will be the deciding factor in this game between G2 eSports and Griffin.
And I love the fact here that we've come to this, because if we go all the way back to when AD carries started being invaded by mages in the bottom lane, it was actually Griffin and Viper who seemed the most initially able to take that on. Then we saw at the start of this year, PerkZ going bot lane, playing Zoe. It might have been in his first game on G2 in the bottom lane. So again, just kind of calling back to that, as G2 says they've kind of been saving their really big-time meta picks for the big important matches at Worlds. We're seeing it here.
And as we get into the game, I mean, you talked about it. Back to mages, back to comfort for PerkZ. Vedius, 9-3 all-time record for him on this champion. And as Jatt mentioned, his first game in the bottom lane was on this pick with a Karthus and a Jayce on his team, and they rained hell on their opponents from long range to set up pick after pick after pick. And they need to replicate that today if they want to find a win.
I respect the cleanse on Viper. He recognizes the single target CC that comes out of this bot lane. He is probably aware that they can likely kill us if a single CC lands, so he's going to play more on the defensive, the heal on the Rakan as well. So while I do imagine that Xayah Rakan should be able to get early push, they have to respect the all-in and kill threat, especially with the presence of a Qiayana should Jankos choose the path bot lane in the early game.
Of course, see how the lane unfolds. PerkZ going to need a few levels, potentially an item under his belt before he gets to that comfortable wave clear state. However, we've seen this jungle match before. We saw it last game, and now it's been flipped. It's Jankos on the Qiayana. He's only had one game on it so far in the tournament, and it was not pretty. Needs to turn that around today. For Tarzan, have to see, will he be tracked so perfectly in the early game again by the side of G2?
And both these teams are so good. We saw what Griffin was able to do with an early game advantage. Into the game we just saw, we got to see what G2 did with 2 early ganks by Jankos onto Sword in the first game. Both teams beating each other in under 30 minutes. This early game can be so volatile and so decisive between these two teams.
PerkZ able to one-shot the wave, at least able to match pressure for now with the Paddle Star. Just kind of threatening, just kind of looking to poke. And I think for now, bot lane will remain relatively calm, but you have to assume level 2, level 3, we can expect at least some form of all-in attempt from one of the sides.
Yeah, I'm quite curious because Zoe early levels, I feel, is most punishable. Her Q doesn't do the most damage. She kind of needs the passive on a W when she starts getting those summoner spells to be a little bit more aggressive. Meanwhile, for both top and mid for G2, you can see how for those solo lane, it's very easy for them to threaten and get pushed. A range advantage for Wunder. Jayce is known for being dominant in lane, and Galio, he's received many nerfs, and his matchups, while receiving, a few recent buffs, the biggest nerf to him being that he can't flash taunt anymore, means that the threat of an early gank is reduced, and he just kind of has to play a lot more defensively in the early laning phase.
But looking at the way that Caps has been able to position that wave, he can freeze it past the halfway point, which would make Chovy a little bit vulnerable.
Yes.
Very well done by Caps, because otherwise, Griffin just has these 2 solo lanes that are playing defensive, and then they only have to protect against Jankos Qiayana ganks for the bottom lane, would be the theory of it. But by manipulating the wave the way Caps just did, he's potentially creating more opportunity for Jankos.
Look at the pathing that Tarzan also took. Did a full clear topside, now in the bottom half of the map. With Chovy pushing in, they have control over the bottom river, and with the wave pushing towards the tower on bot lane, PerkZ and Mykix are in a bit of a dangerous spot. In an ideal world, they can just shove the wave out, but I don't think they're going to be able to do this in time, and I think they're going to get a gank.
Knockup's going to be there, snare to follow. Mykix now needs to make his way out of this one. I don't know if he has the taunt up and available. He's going to taunt there. Knows Tarzan is coming. Sweeper comes out as well. Feels like he's just trying to delay the inevitable, buy time on the rest of the map, waste time on the enemy jungler.
He dodged
Still has
everything.
flash. He's going to waste a lot of time.
Can he make it out of this one? How long until the taunt is back up? Where's he going to go? There's no chance left.
Oh.
No, buys a bit more time with the Spirit's Refuge. Miffy, can he make the escape? No. The Sonic Wave, the Resonating Strike, Tarzan, good patience to clean it up.
But we talked about it, the wave setup in the bot lane was not ideal for G2 because their jungler was on the top side of the map, making it easy for Tarzan to come in from behind, the all-in from Viper and Lehends, allowing Griffin to find first blood and get an early lead in the bot lane.
And the only good news for the side of G2 is it has given PerkZ enough time, with how much time Mickey bought, to go back to buy a Dark Seal, get some boots, maybe make the early laning phase a bit easier. But with that gold going into the pocket of Lee Sin, it's going to be Jankos who actually suffers for that play, having now to deal with a more fed jungler. PerkZ, way too aggressive there.
I mean, that's the punishable part of the lane that you're talking about, Vedius. Now, though, with the wave here and Griffin wanting to shove it in, there would be a very small window of vulnerability. But again, look where Griffin is. Tarzan's absolutely there in case anything's happened. This is the type of clean play that Griffin can do, because you look at their soul lanes, they're both near turret, not vulnerable. The one place where they would be vulnerable, Tarzan's there to cover.
Yeah, Tarzan playing with pressure. We talk a lot about this, and we did last game as well. They just have a good grasp of their fundamentals and how and where they can move on the map. They know that they can force all-ins early, especially on this bot lane with the Lee Sin, which means that they path around it, they ward around it, and they enable Viper and Lehends to find these advantages in the 2v2.
And I think the way that G2 would be able to win this game is if Caps and Wunder can just deny as much CS possible in the 1v1s.
Yeah.
It's not like Chovy and Sword are on these ridiculous outplay mechanical champions, Akali, Aurelia, like we've seen them play sometimes. This is very much two just kind of AoE lane neutralizing soul laners, and G2 with Caps and Wunder need to do as much as possible to make these CS advantages large.
And it's interesting because you check in, I mean, across the lanes, and it feels like Ornn is already catching up. It was a small lead for Jayce early on, but as the waves start to crash, Sword is looking more and more comfortable, and G2 maybe can look to exploit that, but I have to feel like they would be a team to hesitate around that top side after Wunder was so easily able to outplay some of these dives, and it is looking like a run back of game one where Jankos and Wunder now have to try to outplay Sword and Tarzan.
Yeah, I think Jankos is actually the one in counter gank position right now, because with Sword being level 6, he would want to try and make this the time where he fights back, so...
It's tense. Both junglers are hanging around.
Ornn very difficult to burst through. If the Lee Sin overcommits, he'd be the easier target, but he has a challenging smite. Now Wunder has been locked up, waiting for Sword to commit his ultimate. There's the call of the Forge God. Are they going to push for the dive? Tarzan is here as well. Wunder is ignited. The pillar is there to block him. He has to flash out. Good coming out from Wunder to survive, but well played by the side of Griffin.
Yeah, not much of a counter gank. He didn't really move up because Wunder ended up getting jumped on first. I think they were hoping for either more of a commit, but overall that's just a win for Griffin. Both junglers spent the same amount of time, and Wunder lost his flash.
I think the biggest thing was the minion wave. It was so large that Jankos didn't feel comfortable coming in as Sword was engaging, because if he fought in that wave, then the minions could have done more damage than the champion. So I think that's what made it difficult for Jankos to actually set up a successful counter.
And unlike the previous game where Sword on Jayce was able to build pure lethality and just do essentially true damage to the entire enemy team, Wunder now has to lane against an Ornn, so he can go the Black Cleaver for his lane matchup, but everywhere else, he's really going to want that lethality to do as much damage as possible. A difficult situation for him to find himself in.
And Griffin are very comfortable at this point in the game. You can see that both Galio and Ornn have been able to get through the early levels of laning phase pretty much unscathed. Ornn is a little bit behind, but he's going to be pretty comfortable with that. They're going to use the teleport from Chovy to force this Drake mid, and because it's a Zoe who is pretty reliant on items before trying to force fights this early, G2 can't contest this Drake, and again, the early game going very cleanly and advantageously towards Griffin.
And even little things like Lehends waiting on the other side of the Drake pit, so as soon as they can take it, they can go and contest this red buff for Jankos. G2's going to have to fight their way out of this one. They need to find a way to get a kill, and it might be right here if Jankos wants to go in.
Sleepy Chub bubble. His Perk's going to go for anything else. Won't overcommit here. They see the Galio. They know it's going to be very hard for them to pick off any individual target. Jankos just focusing on this red buff, but still has to give respect. Tarzan and Lehends are still here. They're going around the wall. They're
hunting.
The flank.
Lehends has ult if he wants it. He's going for it.
Wants to dash out. He gets pushed back into the wall, but that's just going to be it. Tarzan cleans up the kill. Galio just there for the assist.
And now they have people bottom lane. There's no teleports to save, and this is 4 people on Griffin. The wave is gone, though, which would make the dive more difficult.
They're going to try to proxy it. They're going to try to push it out. What else can they get done? They need to poke down Viper. They need to get someone down low enough to stop this dive. Lehends, of course, with no ultimate. Chovy with no ultimate, but it still should be an easy pick. They're going to try to force it. That's the ultimate coming out. PerkZ is just going to get locked up in the end and taken out. The splash stolen away. PerkZ now trying to retrieve.
Oh,
the PerkZ! The Galio! He walks through it. PerkZ! He does it, he survives. I don't know how, but he manages to make it out. Mickey will pay the price with his life, but an amazing escape.
Griffin still walk away with the advantage, though. They find a big kill onto Mickey. His ultimate was still not available. Caps was so delayed in finding his roam down, and we talked so much about this in draft. It's very easy for Griffin to play through the bot lane. They already found advantages, and now they're continuing to snowball.
And it shows how well this game is going for Griffin when PerkZ has to pull off this godlike outplay so they don't die twice. And they only die once. Griffin had such an advantage from the start by killing Jankos while both solo lane TPs were down that they could kind of take their time with this one. So 2 people go off and chase. Mickey and PerkZ, just perfect timing on that Zoe, and they're right back onto Wunder, no flash.
Knock up Wunder now needs to get out of there. The Ornn's gonna find the knock up. That should be it. Wunder locked up and taken out. Lehends has been everywhere in these games. He is monstering G2 right now.
And Griffin, it's rinse and repeat. They already secured the Drake. They make the swap up to top side. Mickey is not level 6 yet, and Lehends is able to find the setup. G2 are just getting routed in this early game, and it feels like Griffin have full control.
He needs that level 6. They need time. They need to get more. The Lost Chapter is going to help the wave clear for PerkZ. The Stolen Ignite as well. You can see how hard he hits when he can land that max range paddle star. But Viper has so many defensive tools, and when that cleanse comes back up, it's going to be that much harder. He still goes in. He misses the paddle star. Sleepy Trouble Bubble blocked by Lehends. Could have been a death sentence. Good on Lehends once again, and Viper will not drop.
And PerkZ used his actual flash for that. That wasn't the spell thief. He wasted his summoner spell in order to try and get a setup onto Viper while his cleanse was down, and great play from Lehends mitigates that.
And I just gotta say, Tarzan's always there. Anytime you're thinking, oh, maybe Jankos could make something happen here, Tarzan would be waiting, and now they're actually gonna counter.
There you go. The Rakan ult now comes in. They're gonna kick him right back in the middle of the team. The killer can't get anything done. 2 quick kills for Viper.
That was gorgeous by Griffin, seeing the control ward being taken, waiting on the counter kick, knowing that G2 was hoping to play through PerkZ a little bit, and they just immediately turned that double kill.
For G2, PerkZ now on the retreat. The Shen ult now coming in. They are going to back off. They're not going to overcommit in that fight. And I honestly, as the EU representative, it is hard to say it, but Griffin are doing to G2 what G2 has done to every team in the LEC. This is a monstrous early game performance.
Griffin is definitely playing some incredible League of Legends right now, knowing which waves have priority, knowing when they're vulnerable, and also being willing to take what is given to them. So G2 invade into the tri-brush, into controller division, with no idea where Tarzan is, and immediately get killed.
That was so smooth from Tarzan. Getting the kick knock-up onto both members there as well to allow Viper for the double execute. Very well played by him.
I was saying the other day how we're almost taking for granted the godlike Lee Sin players at this tournament. Everyone who's played it has just been so incredibly clean. It's like not even a question of whether they can get the perfect kickback. It just happens when they're in range.
Yeah, it certainly does, and it helps when Griffin have been absolutely dominating in this early game. A lot of it is off the back of Tarzan and his control over the early game.
Oh.
Mickey dashing forward. There's no follow-up quite yet. Very risky for anyone to be in that pit with Jankos has ultimate up and available, but it's not quite there. No supreme display of talent.
Tarzan also does a huge amount of damage, by the way, and he's not afraid to keep on chasing.
Fishing for the max range. Tarzan goes over. Galio comes in. Jankos needs to make it over the wall. He's going to flash into safety, but Tarzan is still there. That's going to be at least one stun. Tarzan locked up, and he'll find the kill anyway. It does not matter, and now Caps is in trouble. Viper getting multiple members lower and lower. Can they finish off any kills here? It's just one for Griffin so far.
And Griffin just continue to smash G2. 7-0 is the kill score right now. G2 have no Drakes. They have not been able to get anywhere near the towers. They've only taken down 2 plates where I don't even think they've gotten the gold. And we already said that this was a different Griffin from what we've seen from last week, but this is exactly the same Griffin that we saw from last game.
And Tarzan has bought real estate in Jankos' mind in this game. He's known every single place he would go, and the entire Griffin team is just hunting that Qiayana. We talk about the Qiayana jungle pick and it being high risk. If you fall behind on that pick, it can be very difficult to come back, because once you lose 1v1 duels against the other jungle, you can't look for the flanks that you want to get.
And now the Rift Herald's channel topside, just in time to grab a few more plays, just in time to put a few more gold into the back pocket of Viper as he works towards that second item. Cap's doing what he can to clear this one out. Good damage. like delaying the charge coming out from the Rift Herald 4 now, but there it is. The knockup going to be flashed away from Lehends, still going to be able to make it out to safety, and Tarzan waiting over the wall. As mentioned, you've said it so many times now, Jatt, Tarzan always where he needs to be, always ahead of the play.
And Cap's right there, still playing very well. His staying up, he's gotten the CS advantage on the Galio, but hasn't been able to make that large impact since the rest of the map has been doing so poorly.
Wunder actually going for the Manamune build as opposed to the full-on lethality, suggesting that he's going to be playing a little bit more towards the side lane and later game. Of course, that's really the only avenue that G2 has back. It's not like their scaling is terrible, of course. Qiayana going to be a valuable teamfight asset later on, along with the Cassio, but it feels like Griffin are not going to give that opportunity for G2. Yamato said it on the desk that when both these teams get a lead, they just don't let it go. And Griffin, based off of what we saw in the first game, will just force G2 in these awkward situations where they will look to fight you, and they'll outplay you and beat you with the egregious gold advantage that they have.
And while Griffin no longer have the Shen, they do have the Galio. So those, aggressive kind of surprise picks that G2 like to burn so many resources to find a way back in the game to get are no longer as viable, especially as Chovy may be falling behind in lane, but is scaling quite comfortably, still has access to the stopwatch, as well as building the Proto Belt for a bit more damage.
Yeah, so probably another very strong early game from Griffin today, making it 4 in a row. If they can continue to win this, they would get first seed in the group, and really just getting that control right in the jungle.
Taunt out, Shock Blast is huge. Tarzan takes a lot of damage there, but Wunder's not going to overcommit.
Even that play, though, just buying time for Chovy to take the turret. There is some pressure being applied on the other side of the map, by the way. Caps is taking minions in between Griffin's top-tier turrets, so trying to do everything he can. And for the first time, I actually see Jankos in a spot where technically Tarzan wouldn't be there, but you can see how ready Sword would be for that. He's just not letting them have any type of dive window.
It also just takes so long for Caps to do any damage to that tower, so they're fine to trade Caps' time top lane, to push more in mid, to take that bottom lane tier 1, to now threaten the bottom tier 2 as Galio and Lehends looking to force that objective.
Oh, they might get the dive here. Sword's got to run.
It's running. Now the flash out comes in from Wunder. They need to make their way out of this one. The Rakan's fast, but not fast enough. Wunder will manage to escape, and Mickey, shepherding next to the tower, is going to miss the taunt. That's going to be disastrous. Mickey's going to give his life for that play. The taunt comes in from the Galio, and that's the cleanup. The knockup to follow, and G2 getting routed. Wunder still turning back. So much confidence. It'll only be the one kill for Griffin.
And no teleports are available on the side of G2. PerkZ looking for a pick, but he will not be able to find it. He's forced to take the long way around because this entire half of the map belongs to Griffin. And even though they are diving between two turrets, G2 have no answers.
The good news is they got that top lane tier 1 in the play. They only gave up a single kill, and now Mickey is TPing in. Pretty easy for Sword, just use the spellbook to grab that heal to zoom right out of that exchange.
A lot of resources being used trying to get just the first kill of the game. Still only a 3,000 gold lead, so the game hasn't been completely broken open for Griffin yet. The kills are in okay spots for Griffin. 2-0-2 on Viper. You would generally like to see almost all your gold put on the Xayah in this specific composition. 5 kills on Tarzan is good, but not great with the Lee Sin scaling. And it's really, I think, just about keeping control over the map, getting that outer tier turret in both the mid and top lanes, and also getting control of Baron will be the next steps for Griffin.
So there's very little armor being built on the side of G2, which means this Lee Sin, probably at this point in the game, maybe at level 11 more so, but he will hit hard. He could probably, if he lands his full combo, one-shot people like the... he'll be able to do a lot of damage to Wunder, that's for sure. I'm pretty confident he can one-shot Jankos. And this Lee Sin, with the itemization that he's going for, is very, very strong, especially at this point in the game. So G2 have to just show respect just to the jungler, let alone Viper, who's also very strong.
Yeah, and the only thing that's keeping the gold close for G2 is the CS advantages on the Cassiopeia and the Jayce. That's a lot of poke.
Viper, respecting the opposition, holding the cleanse to the last second. Does not want to give that up if he does not have to. PerkZ! Flash forward, but a flash trade. Using his actual flash there, has picked up a cleanse. Don't know how much good it's going to do him. That's going to be it. The taunt has now landed in, but they're going to try to get the follow-up fight. Lehends using the quickness to go in, and Tarzan, a massive force for this team. Can he turn around? The Galio now coming in. Caps has to walk away, but the Ornn is calling, and he's calling the defeat of G2 as PerkZ is cut down, as Qiayana is cut down, and 3 members standing have to run for their lives.
And I gotta say, that felt like good aggression from G2, as just Griffin has been right there to counter it, takes it over the wall, and Caps gets chased down as well. They're so smart about the way they're managing damage in these team fights. Like, Viper was at 30% health, but he still found a way to step up at the right time in that fight. And still, Griffin is deathless in this match.
You say it, Jatt. Deathless is what Griffin have achieved so far in this game against G2. G2, who are known for finding skirmishes and picks and fights, have been unable to do that in either game against Griffin. This team has just looked to have downloaded G2 and have no G2 have no answers.
We have a stat called combined kills per minute. That's taking both teams' kills, dividing it by minutes. G2 is one of the only teams I've ever seen over one. By far the highest at this tournament. The fact that Griffin has stopped them from getting any kills so far is incredible. And watching this fight, Tarzan is just playing incredibly, getting so much damage down at the start of this fight. Jankos unable to find a good wall, and then they just run straight through PerkZ and Jankos.
What an impressive Lee Sin performance from Tarzan. Just night and day from what we saw last week. And remember that these junglers play both sides of the matchup, and it feels like Tarzan has gotten the better of Jankos in both instances, proving to many doubters why he is so respected by many analysts and why he is such a talented jungler.
And sadly for G2, this game does not get any easier. As much damage as PerkZ does to the likes of Viper, and Viper alone, he's got all the defensive tool. He's got so many tanky members in front of him, and really no other target is viable right now for PerkZ to try to pick off.
And I think the Null Magic Mantle is a very critical purchase for Viper, because the thing that actually started that fight was G2 thinking they could get a kill, since PerkZ's Paddle Star did 75% of Viper's health. So actually wouldn't be too surprised if he builds a Hex Drinker before going into IE, because they need that durability to prevent a type of one-shot comeback from G2.
And at this point, G2 is just hoping to find picks. You know, trying to catch someone off in a side lane or maybe find Griffin overextending. But from what we've seen so far, this team rarely makes mistakes, and Chovy's not going to get caught either.
Heartbreaker there for Caps. And this is just, I think G2 at desperation times now have to maybe look for a death rush, have to fish for a single kill, but there's a Galio on the enemy team who's only ever had to ult defensively because the pressure is on G2 to force a play. He never has to be the aggressor now because the team can just slowly but surely push in further, take these objectives, deny jungle camps, and extend this gold lead.
And if G2 is able to kill Jankos again, that could likely mean Baron. Tarzan's mind was telling him the correct thing.
They're grouping up in mid lane now. Remember that for Griffin, especially when you have a gold advantage, it's very easy for you to just brute force your way through the enemy parts of the map.
Jankos pushing through the wall. That's going to be the big play. Maybe this is the moment where they can turn. They still haven't been able to find a kill. Tarzan, though, grounded and could be taken out. The call of the Forge-on comes in, but it's turned back. 2 kills. The shutdown. G2 coming alive in the fight, but Viper remains untouched. Drowsy. Can they find any follow-up? That's the petrifying gaze. PerkZ fishing, but he doesn't find the paddle star. That's a disaster, and now Griffin are going to be able to clean this one up. They found 2 kills, but it is not enough. Viper is true strong. That's the triple for the Xayah.
That was the dream start for G2. 0-5 on Qiayana, gets the 3-man ult, but somehow only Tarzan dies, and now they're going for more. Can Viper close down on PerkZ while the rest of his team fights?
Chasing down PerkZ. How long till Sleepy Trouble Bubble? He's sleepy, but I don't think it's going to be enough. The cleanse now comes out, and Viper's going to back off. Paddle Star, PerkZ still playing aggressively, but they've lost the mid lane tier 2 in the meantime.
Well, the bright side is G2 found a kill. So they're not going to be completely smashed by Griffin, but that doesn't really change the state of the game. 22 minutes in, and Griffin are just dismantling G2. And you can see here, you said it, Jatt. This was the best case scenario for them. They were able to chunk out Lehends initially, but look at how divided Mickey is. Not really providing a huge amount of peel for his team. Yes, he gets the kill onto Lehends, but now he's separated. A lot of the front line now disappears.
Right
this
here, PerkZ
big
misses.
knockup, and PerkZ misses the Q. Would that have killed Viper? No, but it would have chunked him out and made it harder for him to approach this fight. But you've also got to give huge props to Sword for catching Caps out in that situation, which gave them the opportunity to engage onto the Cassio.
Yeah, and we mentioned maybe Viper would go for a Hex Drinker to prevent some of the burst. He's actually just gone full Maw to try and make it so he can't get one-shotted, and then IE will likely be 4th. So Griffin is in no rush here to try and win the game, seeing as they have the better initiation, the stronger front line. Or maybe they are in a rush. They're just going to go for the Ornn.
God, miasma to try to deny the Rakan engage, but here comes Lehends. Can they find the follow-up? Jankos ult is going to go wide. It's only going to deny Chovy into the fight, but that's going to be one picked off. Caps taken out. Griffin can turn their sights on the Baron.
I mean, G2 against an Ornn in the mid lane like that can't just be lackadaisically walking around, but the other question is, what else should they do? Because they can't just give up control. That's the power of the Ornn with the big gold lead.
Now the Baron has been started. PerkZ can use this portal jump to try to get a little bit more vision, a little bit more information safely.
Jankos is still alive.
Taunt is there, they're trying to follow up onto PerkZ. PerkZ now flashing out to safety. Tarzan stepping forward, will not connect on the Sonic Wave. The Baron has been held. They're going to continue to keep aggro. They're going to look to burn this one down. Jankos denied access to the pit, has the grass blade, can use the stealth to get closer. It's going to take a miracle right now for G2 to find this one. They're just going to back off. They're not going to take the risk. They don't want to risk the 50-50. They're just going to give it. Griffin get the Baron. They're poised to take the game and the first seed in this group.
Well, they're going to maybe try and fight. Caps teleported in aggressively.
Maybe Chovy, good burst damage to follow up. Sword stepping forward, but slowly but surely getting chunked down. Caps trying to burn through this tank, but he's so incredibly beefy at this stage of the game.
He had the flash the whole time.
Sleepy Galio. PerkZ trying to follow up. Portal jump. Very big risk. Cap's going to use the ult just to try to protect PerkZ from going forward. That could be it.
Nope. Griffin refuses to die. They walk away with the Baron. All 5 members are alive, and G2, they're just looking for table scraps at this point. They have been completely dismantled once again by Griffin, and here come the TPs.
Jankos waiting though. Sword is going to get ulted. It's done to the last moment, but still it's going to connect, and Griffin just going to grab another one. Wunder taken down, the perfect way to start their Baron buff push.
And they also saw Shen and Qiayana ult were both burned there, so likely they at least get an inhib. The question is how much more?
Sleepy Trouble will not connect. They continue to press forward. They continue to look to break these towers. That's going to be one down. Inhibitor next in the sights of Griffin. Tankier members stepping forward. Chovy moving down to the bottom side. They are a little bit split up. Rakan going to dash back. Hopes it'll protect him. Ulti now used by the side of Viper. Now they're trying to re-engage. Now they're trying to turn. Capso with the Cassio doing a lot of damage, but he's only hitting the Ornn, not the target that G2 want to see. Mickey almost completely out of health. Inhibitor will drop. G2 continue to threaten, continue to fish for these opportunities, but they're not getting anything.
And the double ocean is allowing Griffin so much uptime right now. Even if they get hit by one paddle star, they have enough MR that it's not taking them below health. That makes it a little bit faster for the Ocean Dragon to be able to regen for them. Already a successful Baron power play at 3,500 gold, and the 4th Drake of the game going to Griffin.
Griffin are looking unstoppable against G2. It's crazy to see how much different they look, and it's one of those things where in regular season this team is very good because of how consistent they are. You often see the same thing from this team regularly. Their players play well, they have this star which is very controlled and calculated, but then when it comes to playoffs, they aren't able to perform, and to many fans, they consider them chokers. But I don't think it's ever really been about choking. I think it's been about refining their playstyle. They often try a lot of new strategies, but at the end of the day, their fundamentals are key. And finding enemies out of position, finding these collapse, good usage of teleports, and just great execution overall is what makes Griffin such a good team.
And the biggest ability to know when a fight is won or lost and what to do. When they were caught in the jungle, they backed off until they would be able to win the fight. And we also talked about this topic on the analyst desk today, Vedius. How much leash were we willing to give G2 for some of the mistakes they were making in week 1? Was it just happy games, or were they just not in serious mode yet? If you're going to be in serious mode, the difference between a 1 and 2 seed is very important. So this is a monumental win for Griffin if they close it out.
Taunt comes out. That's the call. The Forge God PerkZ is going to be able to get away from that one. They're trying to find the engage. Will
Good
not
disengage.
happen. Lehends. G2 able to back off for now. Cap slowly but surely. He's only been able to hit Sword in all of these exchanges. The Cassio needs to find a clutch target. The Petrifying Gaze is there. Could look for the R flash. Could look for a turnaround here. Or will they just give up another inhibitor? Using the miasma, denying an opportunity.
That was a very good disengage by G2 to not have any deaths after the Ornn horn was blown.
Tower getting chipped away at though. The cannons will take that one. Sleepy Ornn stepping forward, but he's unstoppable. The dash through. They're looking for the opportunity. Lehends is going to find 2 with the knockup. Tarzan focusing on that one. Griffin now having Viper Legendary. They're going to pull the feathers back. PerkZ going to be able to make another one. That's the Petrifying Gaze, but it's not enough. It's a clean kick coming in from the Lee Sin. Jankos tries to disengage, but it's not a supreme display of talent. It is just a call for retreat. G2 running for the hills, and this is it. I cannot believe it. Domination from start to finish in 2 games straight, and Griffin make a commanding statement here. No longer will you look at them as chokers. When the pressure is on, they show up big, and they have dominated the LEC's first seed to take first in the group.
4 dominating wins for Griffin today. 2 of them against the LEC's #1 seed in G2. Not only did they prevent G2 from going 6-0, they take their #1 seed going into the quarterfinals.
From draft to execution to everything, this team just looked near flawless. And what was so impressive was, as you were saying, Jatt, we've been seeing a lot of small mistakes from G2 eSports. We've been seeing people overextend, overcommit, just being out of position. It wasn't like that they made horrendous mistakes in these 2 games against Griffin. They were tiny, but Griffin is a team that is so good at finding and punishing those mistakes and building them into bigger and bigger advantages.
And stuff like this happens when the global ecosystem is strong. So we saw Griffin coming in week 1 and not look that great, because there are things that they did poorly in the early game that were appropriately punished by the quality teams here at Worlds. When they did the bad jungle pathing and the bad top lane in the first game against G2, Jankos punished that. They got 2 kills on a sword, and they never relented. But in this game, this set of games, these 2 matches, Griffin just didn't make mistakes. They were just so incredibly clean, and it was G2 who had the stumbles early that Griffin just never allowed them to recover from.
And now there's a chance that G2 could find FPX in a best of 5. If we assume SKT finished top their group, there's a chance they could meet them as well. There is so much meaning towards finishing in 2nd seed that Europe's hope, this G2 team that many expected to be in the World Finals, now have a much harder road in order to even make it.
And the question that I have to ask following that is this: we don't care who we face. At the end of the day, we want to beat everyone if we want to prove the best in the world. How long does that attitude hold up when you find yourself losing 2 back-to-back games in this fashion?
So glass half full, this was analogous to the Fnatic IG group. You remember,
Yes.
Fnatic did win 2 games against IG. But what happened to IG next, Drakos?
Oh, man.
They won the World Championship, right? We'll see. This was an amazing day from Griffin.